I guess we would say it's day 14. It's the day after the night before. As ever during Wimbledon, a big thank you to our partners, Novellus, who have helped us get through the last 2 weeks. I think we've managed to bring you about 7 or 8 live shows. I hope everyone's enjoyed them. Anyone that is joining us live, as ever, any questions that you may have, please throw them in there. We do have a special edition coming to this. Actually, I did the chat earlier today, and that is with a Wimbledon champion, and a very special Wimbledon champion for me. It's a player that I coached from the age of 12. I've basically spent a lot of time with him over the last 20 years in various capacities, but coaching, and I'd like to call him a friend as well. And that's Lloyd Glasspool and Julian Cash, who won the men's doubles on Saturday. Lloyd came on and spoke to me earlier. So when this goes out as a podcast, that will be also part of the episode. And for someone who's known Lloyd from such an early age, not getting a lot of conversation out of Lloyd at times, to hear him speak so eloquently about what was quite an incredible achievement is really special. So that's going to be added in on this episode as well. I then have Freddie Nielsen that will be joining me, the ever-present Freddie Nielsen, Davis Cup captain, but also the coach of August Holmgren, who had a fantastic run at Wimbledon, making the third round, coming through qualifying and going all the way to the third round before losing to Alex de Minaur. And then my next guest who has joined me is the legend that is Kieran Vorster. He needs no introduction. He's been a legend of the sport for many years. Kieran, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Just soaking up and gathering my thoughts on what happened yesterday. I happened to be there on centre court watching it, so I had the privilege of seeing it live. I had great seats, member seats, right by the Royal Box.
Fantastic.
So I was up front and close to the action.
And Freddie's joined us as well. A big welcome to Freddie Nielsen. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, thanks. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
The tennis world moves fast. You're already in Bastad. You've got to stay a little. Be careful how you say that name when you're English.
Yes, especially when you're a Geordie.
it's moving fast back to the clay already.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the way of the world, the tennis world. It doesn't sleep, just keeps going. The whole everybody is who's here. It's very important for them. So you kind of forget sometimes that when you have a Wimbledon final or Slam final, the rest of the tennis world is on chase the second that finishes.
Absolutely, and we have to start. I think I have to hold my hands up. Fozzie, you weren't on our live stream with me, Freddie, and Calvin on Friday night, but I picked Anisimova to beat Swiatek. That one won't go down as a classic pick. So you'll get plenty chance to get me on that one. But we will start, not just because I did pick Sinner to beat Alcaraz, but because that's where you were yesterday. That was obviously our final match of Wimbledon 2025. What was your take on it?
Just before we go into that, it's also a shame that we don't have Calvin on this to ask the full lowdown on how Henry Patton got his fine at Wimbledon.
Well, it was talked about on Friday night, but as the appeal has gone in, he's not allowed to speak on it yet. Albeit I sense he is ready and raring to go when the opportunity comes. But it's in the hands of the appeal. I did give a little bit of a background on it in the live show on Friday night. So if anyone wants to hear about that, please go and listen to that one. But yeah, bit of a crazy one, but that's the way that it goes sometimes. And what? So tell us yesterday. Going into it, Vozzy, did you have Sinner or did you have Alcaraz?
I mean, I think before we talk about this, I'm still in shock about Cash and Glasspool winning 3 grass court titles, and the biggest one being Wimbledon. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, hats off to the boys. And what was it, the first British pairing since 1938?
1939.
Am I wrong?
1939. So I was just saying before you guys came on, I actually had Lloyd on he was going to join us tonight, but he had another engagement. So I spoke to him for half an hour for the podcast, which is going to be, when this goes out as a podcast, that'll be part of it. And I was just saying, like, Lloyd's someone, I mean, I started coaching him at age 12, he's never said many more than 6 words to me. But it really feels like he's grown into his own skin. And I mean, his nerve in that semi-final and final was incredible. He didn't blink. He just took it in his stride. And it seems like those boys have been doing that non-stop. They're serving beautifully, hitting their spots well. They had a little bit of a dodgy moment at 4-2, Cash serving, where they got the break back in the second set. But apart from that, they played a pretty faultless semi-final and final. And what an incredible achievement. 89 years since the last all-British pair. Maybe they could be team of the year in sports personality.
Maybe. And we're just over halfway through the year. Yeah, strong possibility. I think you just got to be careful of what the British Lions do down in Australia. But yeah, they will be up there, or what Chelsea do, having won the inaugural Club World Cup, which if you're a Chelsea fan, it's the biggest tournament in the world. But yeah, it's will be interesting to see. I mean, they're obviously doing super well. So yeah, BBC Sports Personality of the Year. I'm not too sure this. I'm not too sure if you're going to get too much of the personality award out of Lloyd Glasspool, but great achievement.
Ryan Giggs won it one.
Yeah, he probably did that. He probably did. He probably did that because his whole family were a team player, right? Anyway, I won't go into that one.
So come on, Vozzy, take us to it. Sinner Alcaraz. The last seven Grand Slams have now been won by Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz. We've been talking about it. We wanted to see them in a final. We've now seen them in 2 back-to-back finals, Roland Garros and Wimbledon. We're going to see it a lot more. I think most people had Alcaraz for the one yesterday, yet Sinner just kind of did what he had to do to get the job done with Alcaraz not quite firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, so my take on it was even the first set, I think, went against kind of the flow. I mean, Sinner was up a break in the first 4-2, and obviously Carlos played a few good games to win at 6-4. But I always felt that after that Sinner was in control of the match. Tactically, I thought he played pretty well. I mean, Alcaraz didn't serve that great. Sinner was on the second serve, taking it early, taking time away from Alcaraz. One thing that I thought that he was very much, obviously Sinner was standing very close to the baseline at all times and very much neutralizing the power of Alcaraz. So when Alcaraz tried to put more MPH on the ball, Sinner was getting it, obviously returning it back with interest. And I thought he plugged his forehand more than his backhand for a lot of the match. And I felt that Alcaraz obviously didn't serve that well, and he got himself in a lot of trouble when he was in offensive positions going to play the drop shot, and he was overplaying the drop shot, and he was getting himself in a lot of trouble with that, and probably he lost a lot of points with the drop shot where he was in control and he could have hit a line ball and come in behind it because he was bowling quite well at the time. Obviously, both great movers. I was very impressed with Sinner's moving out to the forehand, where he has these long levers, long reach, and he's able to hold his balance in a strong position and not just retrieve the ball, but hit it back with interest. So I thought he neutralized it really well. And on the day, the best player on the day won. Superb atmosphere on the court. I thought, the Alcaraz fans, especially in the fourth, who were behind his box, really got into it. But I would say that, at the end, there was also a lot of Jannik fans there. And yeah, I think tactically, he did well and deserved the match.
There was a lovely moment. I don't know if you saw it, Freddie, but I was watching with my kids, and my son plays, and being a tennis dad, can't just let my kids watch the tennis in peace. I kind of turned and said, like, his Alcaraz, he had that big smile on his face, and his kind of friends from home were making a lot of noise. You could see it on the TV, and he just kind of had this lovely smile on his face, and he was almost changing the energy on the court, it felt. And he actually got a 15-40 in that game. you know, and that would have been interesting, I think, getting back to 4-4, you know. But just I love the way that Alcaraz seems to have different ways of changing the energy on the court as well, and using joy, and even in the aftermatch, right? We're used to seeing the loser stand there with like a big grumpy look on the face, whereas Alcaraz, the teeth were showing, he big smiles. You know, there was one shot that went to when Sinner was going over there celebrating with his team, and Alcaraz was looking over and clapping. You know, stuff he doesn't have to do. I don't know what you thought about that moment, Freddie, and what your take on the match was yesterday as well.
I agree with you. I think it's nice to see. There's a lot of old school people, me included, who also appreciate the true raw emotions, and that you show how you feel. That you don't necessarily have to be a good loser just for the sake of being a good loser. But I think the key word here is authentic, and if it's authentic, it's believable, and that's what I think about Carlos. That's why I like it. That's why I like their rivalry. I also think that it's that there's room for a little bit of tenacity, and you don't maybe necessarily have to be the best loser in sports. Again,
Yep.
It comes down to authenticity, and as long as there's authenticity, I think it's all good. And I do really appreciate that side of Carlos. It makes me a fan of him. I do like his approach, and it, like you said, it can be a way of giving yourself something extra when the forehands and backhands aren't necessarily doing the work. My impression yesterday was that he felt that he was overmatched from a tennis point of view. I saw a tweet from a tennis journalist who said that he had said to his box, "He's just playing much better than I am," about Sinner. And it felt like one of those. It kind of felt like similar to when Djokovic played Sinner in Wimbledon. That not in Wimbledon, in Paris this year. That Sinner was just better, and he felt that he was better, and he was always going to win. And I think the key moment for me was the first game of the second set. Having been down a break in the first, Carlos, he really finished strong, breaking back and breaking to win the set, finishing up on momentum. And like I always tell my players, you know, sets can be won at the beginning of the sets. And that first game, I just had the feeling that he took his foot a little off the speeder and played a bit with the cushion. And for me, that changed the whole thing around. And from then on, he played front foot tennis, Jannik, and was the better player on the day.
Because in that first set, the forehand of Sinner, certainly from 4-2 to 6-4, looked a bit wild. You know, it looked like his timing was off. He looked like there was doubt in his mind, but just maybe that little bit of belief that Alcaraz gave him just to start of that second set. I agree, makes such a difference. And Vozzy, I want to bring it to you because let's not forget a few nights earlier, we were in a position where Grigor Dimitrov was 2 sets to love up on Jannik Sinner, you know, 2-2 in the third set. Somebody asked me about that. I said that's probably still a 50-50 match. I'm not convinced that necessarily Dimitrov's the favorite from that position against Jannik Sinner, just the nature of Sinner. But what a big bit of fortune that was for Sinner in his Wimbledon run, and obviously a massive misfortune for poor Grigor Dimitrov that was watching from a hospital bed after having operated on his pectoral muscle.
There was no operation, just to be clear. So basically, just talking of the Grigor injury, luckily it was just isolated to the pectoral. All the rotator cuff muscles were intact, all the insertions were intact. The biceps tendon was fine. So the prognosis for Grigor, which I think is we should all be aware of it, is no tennis for 4 weeks. He can practice from week 4 onward, and no competing for 6 weeks. So it's highly unlikely that he will be playing. The U.S. Open, but he'll be going into Asia. I don't think on that particular match, Grigor was serving 10 miles an hour faster than he had his average. So he was definitely putting a lot of effort into it. But I do think that he was the I think he was still the favorite. The conditions were not favoring Yannick under the roof. It was heavy. He wasn't getting the zip on the ball. I think if it carried on, well, we'll never know. But yeah, he will. He probably would have lost. But everyone who wins a slam needs a little bit of luck, and he definitely got the luck that he needed in that particular instance.
And before we move to some of I think the less said about our dark horses, the better maybe. But as we move to some of those kind of next stage players, and obviously some shout outs to give, I think, I mentioned it earlier, 7 majors now where we've gone. I believe we've gone Sinner, Alcaraz, Sinner, Sinner, Alcaraz, Alcaraz, Sinner. So we've gone. Sinner's won of the last 7. Sinner's won 4, and Alcaraz has won 3. They've played in the last 2 finals. I asked this question the other night. It was actually to Freddie and Calvin. If it's not Sinner and it's not Alcaraz, who is it? Who's gonna break that? It feels like we could be setting in for a cycle for the next couple of years. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy to see where the next person is to challenge him coming from. I do think that the Zverev, the Zverevs of this world can, if they have a good run, but they are definitely Sinner and Alcaraz are definitely one level above everybody else. It's clear to see. You can just you look at obviously Rome, French, and Queens, now Wimbledon, and it'll be this probably the same on the hardcourt season. But yeah, it's basically like we said before with the year before. It's like that's the standard that's been set. That's what the players who are coming up or want to challenge need to be at. It was also quite interesting, like hearing Yannick speak in the afterwards. He was asked a question of did he find it physical or mental, and he was very clear it was a lot more mental than physical.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And speaking of mental, sorry, I'm back. I had some issues there, but can we just highlight his mental strength? I mean, the stuff he's been going through for whatever has happened, and he doesn't seem to flinch a moment. US Open last year after the whole shenanigans. This year with the French Open, and then having to fire his physio just before Wimbledon. It seems like nothing really bothers him, huh?
Yeah, but it's amazing. But I loved what he said, and I don't have the exact quote what he said after the match, but it was basically along the lines of you win or you lose. There's no difference really. We still then just look at the match and we analyze and we see where we can make improvements. And once you take that emotion away of the result, you are truly in the process. That's where you're living, and it feels like him and his team, obviously very Darren Cahill, extremely experienced team around him, their ability to be able to just kind of go, okay, that's happened. Okay, we deal with that. Okay, what's our process? Our process is watching the match back, taking our learnings, getting back on the practice court, getting a little bit better, and we keep moving on. It's very easy to say that, but it's another thing, Freddie, to do that, right? That's a very
that I was just about to say that, it's kind of like saying, well, every point is the same as every other point, so you should just not be worried about it and not be nervous and all this stuff. I mean, I guess it's also why we appreciate the big athletes, because they kind of make it seem easy. And I'm sure it is to him. I'm sure he feels like it is easy to him, but it is so difficult. And you just got to say that, I mean, I think this is probably shining through now as his biggest asset as a tennis player, just how unfazed he is, and how he's able to stay calm and turn adversity into positive fuel, because he really does seem unbothered by and I mean, I always think about these things when I hear the big athletes talk about you can do all this the easiest thing is to stay calm, or train hard or see it as every other point and all this and this and that. And I'm sure to them it is easy, but I also feel like it's a dangerous precedence to set to youngsters and to people who struggle with it, because it is bloody difficult. And if it were that easy, everybody would do it. So there's obviously for them it came easy, but it's not like just flicking a switch, that you just all of a sudden are calm and composed and mentally absolutely unbothered.
And someone else who I want to mention, I just was saying, the dark horses, maybe we stay a little bit clear on some of our dark horses. We didn't exactly fill ourselves with glory. We haven't even got to the women's dark horses, Wick Meyer yet, Vossi. But in terms of some of the players, and the one that I want to give a shout out to, and it's crazy that he would be a dark horse, but I guess by ranking he was Cameron Norrie. Almost dropped outside the top 100 in the world earlier this year. Was a top 10 player. Since the clay court season has begun, he's won 18 matches. He's won 29 on the year, but he's picked up 18 wins. The grass court's going in. He'd lost to Billy Harris in Eastbourne to put 4 wins together at Wimbledon and falling short to Alcaraz. It's great to have Cameron Norrie, and I believe he's one of only 4 British men that have now made more than one, or basically multiple quarterfinal appearances at Wimbledon as well. So a big shout out to Cam Norrie and his team, Vossi.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the tour is not easier, and when you get on that downward spiral and you start losing matches, it's really tough. And so for him to for him to be able to regroup, regather, and like anything, like winning matches breeds confidence. Confidence breeds more winning matches, and it's a vicious circle. When you start losing matches, you start questioning stuff. You start questioning, am I doing the right things, or it's mental, is it physical? Do I need to look, maybe potentially change my team, freshen things up? Nothing against anyone and a team, but when you're with a team for so long, it can get stale, and so it's just like an injection of vitality and vibrance. But he has a great team, so I'm not saying that's the issue at all. But it's just great. He got on a run. Tough to play Alcaraz, but I thought the match against Jarry, he was clutch. He played super well. And I thought Jarry, I was very impressed with Jarry, and Cam handled it really well. He moves well. Physicality is not an issue for him. He can stay out there, long periods of time. And so, I just, hat off to him and the team. And hopefully he has a good hardcore run now. And, at the end of the day, he was injured this time last year. He didn't play all through the summer. Missed the US Open, so he's got a run of months where he has no pressure and is get a few matches under his belt, and his ranking can get back to where it should be.
And I think
can I just piggyback on that? Sorry, because I want to double down on the team thing. And one thing that always strikes me with Cam is he's first of all, you could say he's loyal to his team, but it's something that always strikes me that they seem to have such good dynamic. And he's had a few moments in the last few years where he kind of started losing matches that were losing more than he was, and dropping in the rankings in and out. And I just feel like it never seems like it's even something that's up for debate for him, for either of them, that to pull the plug. And they just seem like they're just problem solvers, and like, okay, this is where we're at now. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about it? And they seem to work so well together. And I think it's quite inspiring, to be honest, that they seem like they're like a good doubles team that don't even consider breaking up, but instead of they're playing to justify the partnership. They're in it to solve the problems, and we're in it together, and we're going to maximize this, and we're going to get on the other side, and for that we're going to be stronger for it. And I really think that's inspiring and impressive, and I always look to that.
And I think on that point, that's what ultimate accountability does as well, right? I think when a player takes ultimate accountability, they're not necessarily looking to blame people in their world, and that's that unconditional trust and that unconditional team that's so difficult to get. And I think Cam
and it also allows to ask the difficult questions to each other, because you know that there's that implied that we're in it, so we can kind of question, hey,
not an ulterior
I
motive,
expect I expect more from you now, we got to step it up, or you've been whatever you need to say. I'm not saying that that's how they do it, but that loyalty and that commitment creates the trust to be able to be more honest, because there's no risk that either one of them is going to abandon the other one.
And he's a one for the putting the work in. He's a one for that team. And even like I've seen at Queens, he lost first round, but then he was out every day, practice sets, doing his drills, putting the work in. Intensity was there. He had a good run at the doubles at Queens. Made semi-finals. After the doubles finished, he's back on the practice court again, getting his singles work in, doing his targets, getting his volume. It's a good
can
one.
I add to? Yeah, sorry, Dan. Can I add to that? Alcaraz also noticed that, and he brought that up in his post-match conferences as well. So to say that he wasn't surprised that Cam's back, because basically he noticed that Queens he has been, putting in all the work, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
And he has very good quotes in the media. I mean, you never really know that he's not playing well, because it's always like, I'm happy with my work, it's gonna turn around, blah blah blah. It's not. I feel like he's just got an all-round super great attitude towards his profession.
Hats off to Cam, and to finish the love in, he's a Newcastle United fan. How are the lads, Cam? We'll move on.
Embarrassing.
And to move it to your country, Fred. And I know we had you on a couple of live shows where you've gone into detail. I think when we looked at the men's draw and we looked at the Danish players in the men's draw, there was only one player that we thought was going to go deep into the draw, and yet another one who you coach in August Holmgren. Is that the right pronunciation?
Better than some of the other ones, let's put it that way. Yeah, it was fine.
Winning 3 matches in qualifying, winning 2 main draw matches, including top match in the second round, and then having a good battle with Alex de Minaur, moving up now to the top 150 in the world. Starting to believe, I'm sure. How was the Wimbledon from a day? Give us a little bit more insight into August and what that now means potentially for his rest of 2025.
The easy question first to answer is that the easy thing to highlight is that the points were very important for him, because he actually had a pretty tough year coming off a very good summer last year. So they were very important for him to stabilize, to avoid the free fall ranking wise. Secondly, the more important one, in my opinion, is that this was the first time he really saw that the process he's been working on and all the commitments and all the things that we highlighted coming off into full expectancy. The small things as to how his game should be. People that saw his matches would see that he has a tremendous serve, but might not be the most regular returner. So to kind of we made the goal to how to use those things to his advantage, and this came out in a great way. His mental approach towards that. What does that mean for you as a player? But when you can't expect to be just solidly returning every single shot, every single serve from the opponent, and also just that what that means of being a very aggressive player. And he really saw the proof now of what it can look like. Obviously, it was a very good run for him, but it's not gonna be every day for him to play at this level. This is obviously the best tournament he's ever played, so it's not gonna. Rome wasn't built in a day, but
how do you manage those expectations, though? Now, how as a coach, how are you now going to help manage those expectations of just that feeling, right? That feeling of being someone, having everyone in Denmark talking about him. He's become a little celebrity, mini celebrity. Everyone wanting tickets, everyone wanted to talk to him, and now all of a sudden he's in Granby where no one gives 2 shits who he is. How do you manage that expectation?
to some degree, that probably helps that he's in Granby, where he can go a little under the radar and nobody's bothering him too much. But apart from that, we really, really try to verbalize it a lot. What could happen? What could potentially happen? It's something he struggled with before, so it's something that we can kind of lean on. You know, what's happened in the past, and remember this. So for example, he's a kind of guy who, after good results, thinks that means he has to take his tennis to a level that is unheard of, and just to kind of remember, okay, these are the things that went well. Remember that it's the performance that matters, and it's not so much the outcome that we're trying to chase here, and and try to remember this is going to be difficult. This is going to be different. You know, you're still playing good level tennis players. If you can go out and play a guy who's ranked 380, and he might actually get the upper hand because people are so good. And it's really just about hammering home these different expectations for us and making sure that he stays within himself and doesn't lose himself to some imaginary expectation of having to hit 45 aces in every match and hit every shot in the corner, because that's the danger of thinking, okay, now I competed with this guy, this is the new reality, and simple and really try to make it easy for him to know what he's supposed to be doing on the court, especially when the stress comes in, when the scoreboard pressure comes in. If he in the first match back is playing a guy he's expected to win and he's down a set and a break, and that panic station could come in and say, well, this is not supposed to be happening. So we really just talked a lot about the different expectations, what we can expect, and what his actions are going to be in those situations.
Very good. And in terms of Holger, who's the Danish player that we keep talking about him, we know that he's got the level. You know, final of Indian Wells this year. A couple of weeks later, he then won in Barcelona, beat Alcaraz in the final, and I think everyone was starting to go, right, Holger could be really going here. Since then, he's 6-5. Granted, difficult draw. Nicholas Jarry first round, 2 sets to love up. We know he's a big game player, can play on the grass. However, once again, I guess in the moments, Holger's not quite performed.
I think it's a difficult one because this year he's been very unlucky with. I've seen it firsthand coming from. He came from Australia, having played quite well against Sinner. Then he played really well for us in Davis Cup against Serbia. Was on a high. Was ready to take that momentum to Rotterdam and those tournaments coming up. And he got sick, and he's been sick a lot. He's got stomach bugs. He's got injuries and all sorts. And yeah, it's been. I mean, it might be a little bit boring to say, but he's had a lot of bad luck, and now his knee started flaring up, and it affected his match. I think the people that saw he was quite comfortable, 2 sets to love up, and then if you're not really able to compete, I mean, you're never really 100%, but if you're not able to compete well, you're always going to struggle, and especially against a great player from Jarry. So I think like we've seen glimpses, like you said, Barcelona was for me the best I've ever seen, the best side of him, and I thought there was really something to build on. But from Holger's point of view, he had really an unlucky year. Actually, I mean, I don't know how they analyze it within the team, but for me, from the outside, it's been very start-stop, and yeah, it's been unfortunate because I keep mentioning it here. I do genuinely believe that he's one of the best players in the world and one of the guys that could take it to the best guys. But
I think we all do, yeah.
And for one reason or the other, it's not really coming out yet. So I think it's still a matter of time. I think he's also the kind of guy I know that he'll not be content with this. You know, he's not just ready to say that I've been unlucky. He does also understand that something needs to change, and he's gonna put in the miles. So I think that there's the best is still to be seen for him. He's still young.
And Vozzy, we talked about the Brits, we talked about the Danes. I want to move to one more country before we move into the women's side, and that's the Italians. Obviously, we've talked about Jannik Sinner. Couple of Italians I would also like to mention on the positive side. Caboli, I think, showed us that he can seriously play. I think a lot of people were surprised when they heard he was top 30 in the world, and he put up a great fight against Novak Djokovic. But the one I want to throw to you right now is Fabio. Fabio Fognini, who's entertained us for many years. And we were saying on one of the live shows, it might have been one of the ones that you got me out of trouble, Vozzy, at the last minute and helped me out with. But we were saying, that felt like his stage. Carlos Alcaraz, 5 sets, centre court. That's where he belongs. He doesn't belong playing in, on some smaller court somewhere. His personality, and it's been fitting since then. He has retired and said, this was a fitting way for me to leave my career.
Yeah, a great way to end a 5-star career. Great tennis player. In the latter years, he had a couple injuries. Incredible entertainment. And I totally agree. It was nice that his son was able to be at an age where he could watch him play and actually probably have be able to remember and have great memories of his dad. Obviously his wife was a great player as well. I think it was a fitting end to a great career for him. And I listened to a little bit of his press conference after the Corbelli match, and it was along those lines that it was nice for his son to be there. Obviously, it'll be nice now that he'll be home more. And he'll obviously be busy with his kids and stuff. So I think he's looking forward to the next phase of his life. It will be very, very different to the former phase of his life, but all exciting times for him to look ahead. And I would not be surprised at some stage in the future with his flamboyancy and charisma that he becomes Italian Davis Cup captain.
Absolutely. They love that over there. He'll have the crowd absolutely whipped.
Correct.
Whipped into a frenzy. And Freddie, on the Italian, the one that I want to mention to you is Musetti, who obviously had an incredible clay court season. And I just want to tie that point in. Obviously, went out first round at Wimbledon, semi-finalist last year. But we had 13 seeds go out in the first round on the men's side. Obviously Musetti being one of the high-profile ones. We did discuss this again on the live shows, but what do you put that down to? Is that the heat? Is that the short turnaround from the clay courts to the grass courts? Somebody like Musetti may be guilty of almost having too much success on the clay, not quite able to get his body and mind ready for the grass. How do you tie that all together?
With Musetti, my thoughts were that I just don't think he was fit after French Open. He had to pull out of French Open with an injury, right?
Correct.
So that's just that's what I was thinking, that he was coming back to play Wimbledon because it was Wimbledon. He had semi-final to defend. It was an important for him, and he just wasn't fit enough to play.
I agree with Fred there. I don't think he should have played. Turnaround was too quick. On one of them that I was quite pleased, talking of potential injuries, with Alex de Minaur, who had an MRI scan at Queen's based on his hip. But there was no issue and he just needed rest. So, I was pleased to see him come back and make the quarters for, I think it's the 4th or 5th time he's done it. He's done it quite a few times. But anyway, it was just nice to see him get back and be healthy.
And I think just in general now that it seems like it's Carlos and Jannik, like we talked about, and then probably a few more in the top 10. But then from then on, it feels like it's open. I think it's actually quite fun. It's basically a bit like it was in the 90s, where I think we had a period of time during the peak of Novak, Rafa, Roger, Andy, who else was there? Kay and Berdych, where everybody was just cruising through the first few matches. And I think we're just back to more competitive tennis. It might be an anomaly that so many seeded players lost first round, but the depth from 10 or 20 to 150 is insane now.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good, and I think it's just it's gonna be more everyday occurrences that the seeds lose in the first round of slams simply because the level is so deep and good.
And I have to now's your chance to get me, guys. My words on Friday night were, Anisimova will get herself into a position to win the match against Iga, whether she has the bottle to go through the door. Now, what I didn't know
is that a way of trying to actually say that you said so? Oh my God.
No,
unbelievable.
I'm setting this up. Hey, it's a free shot. I'm here. Over to you guys. She lost 6-love. It's a horrendous call. I've got to comment.
It's a horrendous call, but let's be honest. I feel for her. I mean, I couldn't even enjoy your misery because I actually felt for her. It must have been an awful experience.
Horrendous experience, and I'm sure she will be able to reflect pretty quickly. At the end of the day.
But she did, right? Her speech afterwards was really impressive, considering that that almost felt, it was palpable, that feeling. It was like, uncomfortable, and she handled it so well afterwards. So kudos to her. She explained it quite well in the press, I think, and yeah, that was rough. That was rough.
And one of the things she said, Vozzy, and maybe look, these, we never quite know the consequences of certain actions, right? And this could end up, the fact that she did have that, and let's be honest, 6-love at any level of tennis is a bit of an embarrassing feeling, right? It's not, where we all have egos. It's not good for anybody to experience that, never mind in the final of Wimbledon. But almost the strength of pain that she's experienced, one of the things I heard her say, and I'd love your thoughts, Fozzy, on this from a physical side, is she said, I'm not fit enough. I'm not fit enough to be able to go 2 weeks playing Grand Slams, playing these matches. She had pretty high drama in quite a few of her matches, serving for the match, not winning the serve, against Pavlyuchenkova. She was 6-1, 5-2 up, served for it twice, found herself 6-2 down in the tiebreak, came back and won 11-9. Then playing the world number one Aryna Sabalenka, serving for the match at 5-3 in the third, lost a serve, broke to win 5-4, 6-4. There's a lot there that's building and building. Then the family came from America, and she just said, from a physical fitness standpoint, but also a mental fitness standpoint, I didn't hit the day before the final because I was just exhausted. But then I woke up the day of the final, and in the warm-up, I just still felt absolutely exhausted. Maybe feels she wasn't quite prepared for what the demands of a Grand Slam run take, Fozzy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easier. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, play Grand Slams. I mean, it's not easy at all. What do you think, Fred?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And the thing that people don't really see on TV is, like you said, the emotional the things that come with it. If you go deep and the attention, the only time I had a panic attack when we made semifinals of Wimbledon one year, because it just got too much for me. I think that's why. It was too much, and I couldn't deal with it, and I wasn't able to perform particularly well. In some manners, it was my best performance ever because it didn't shine through that much. But it just kind of, it's a lot, it's a lot, and there's a lot of emotional baggage from the matches, especially if it's up and down, and then the stuff that goes on through the matches and people reaching out. It's that's why these guys are so good, and that's why all these players that have continuously performed are so impressive, because it is so difficult.
And I think on the flip side, and obviously a massive shout out to Iga Swiatek, who at a 6th Grand Slam now, I think, for Roland Garros's, 1 Australia, 1 French,
US Open, right?
One US and 1 Wimbledon, hasn't won Australia. Yeah, that's right. Now her scores 7-5, 6-1, 5-7, 6-2, 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, 6-1, 6-2, 7-5, 6-2, 6-love, 6-love, 6-love. And
to pull out a Dan Kiernan, I did say in the previews, watch out for her. She'll have a good tournament. Don't sleep on her.
Hi, Freddie, we're going to give you all the credit.
I thought I thought that was the MO of being on this podcast.
Don't get me started on Anisimova.
Exactly.
but with Iga, it actually feels to me like it's almost the opposite of what you're explaining there, with what your experience was, Freddie, and what Anisimova's experience was. It's almost like this expectation's been taken off Iga the last few weeks. She's been able to battle down the hatches, get with her team, reset a few things, go under the radar a little bit more. And then she's obviously, I know that when she played Clara Towson, Clara wasn't feeling so well. When she played Bencic, there was a bit of an injury. But ultimately, she's just kind of gone through that draw like a knife through butter, Vozzy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, same situation. I mean, yeah, it's just tough. It's just tough.
Yeah, but I agree with you that I mean, remember when we did the French Open preview, we didn't even mention her as a potential winner. That's how much her stock had fallen recently, and so you can imagine what people were thinking about Wimbledon. And I think when you're that good a player, you always got to have dips, and it can be quite nice to then find your form and still not really be one of the players people are talking about for winning the title, and you can kind of have the feeling that you play with house money. She did that well because, I mean, let's be honest, as long as she's playing, she's always going to be a heck of a player.
And then, because if you look at then a Sabalenka, who was the picks of most people on the podcast, mine was another shocking pick, Rybakina. Rybakina just didn't perform and hasn't performed now for a long time. But if we take Sabalenka, and we knew it in advance, right? The draw was she played against Carson Branstein first, which, big serving Canadian, 1-5. Buskova 6-4. Raducanu, which I want to talk about in a minute, saved a set point, 6-4. Lisa Mertens, her ex-doubles partner, who she's won 2 Grand Slams with, 6-4, 7-6. Laura Siegmund, who was the dark horse of all dark horses. That would have been a great one for us to pick. Slicing and dicing and causing all sorts of issues. She was 4-2 up in the third. She was 4-3, 40-15 up in the third. Sabalenka came back and won that. And then Sabalenka went and lost 6-4 in the third set. She had anything but an eager sort of run through to the final. And maybe that eventually caught her out, Freddie, in that long semi-final with Anisimova.
Possibly, and I think more importantly, just that she never really got any kind of rhythm going tennis-wise. I mean, it was very start-stop, and I don't know. Maybe it's just something that I tell myself based on nothing, but it feels like she's been forcing it a little bit upon herself instead of letting the racket speak, and maybe she was so hell-bent on rectifying the Roland Garros disappointment that it was just, I don't know, I had the feeling that just to repeat myself, that she was forcing it a bit too much on herself and never really found a baseline to compete on, and therefore went too much up and down. And I think maybe also spending that emotional energy, we've spoken about that so many times, that if you want to go deep in a slam, if you conserve emotional energy and pull it out when you need it the most, that's the most important thing, along with obviously having quality. But all these players have quality, and maybe she was just a little spent and taxed over both due to this and maybe French Open. And I think to your point, it probably would have helped her if she was able to get through the draw a little easier. But then again, it's a little bit of chicken and egg situation. But yeah, it definitely wasn't her tournament. But I guess if it's not a great tournament, it's still a decent run to make.
Yeah, well, I thought Vozzy Raducanu. I was in the stadium that day with my kids. Raducanu had her for a moment there, and had the set point, 4-1 up, points for 5-1, 4-2 up, points for 5-2, and it feels like Raducanu is finally finding her level finding it at her base level, 25, 30 in the world sort of level. Vondrousova, good win in the second round, kind of dealt with the Mimi Zhu first round that we discussed in the preview, put up a good fight with Sabalenka. But more importantly than that for me, she's now played, if I go back to the event, she's played Madrid after Miami. So she's played Indian Wells, and before that was Dubai, Doha, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So she's literally playing a full schedule right now: Dubai, Indian Wells, Miami, Madrid, Rome, Strasbourg, Paris, Queens, Eastbourne, Wimbledon. Finally she's getting a run of tournaments. She seems to be putting herself out there, and now we're starting to see her base level, true level come out, which from a British perspective is good to see, I think.
Yeah, I think it's great for a British perspective. I still think there's the perspective in her game is important as well. I thought she played super well against Sabalenka. I thought she had really good focus. Physically, I thought she went toe for toe. And I just thought in general she felt comfortable out there on the center court. She felt comfortable playing the world number one. And like I said at the start of the year, the perspective for her this whole year would be stop the noise around her and just let her play a full schedule. Play matches and less training blocks, but more trying to get as much match fitness as possible. And last year was stop start. She missed the whole summer because she didn't get wild cards, and then she went to the US Open undercooked. She never played a full clay court season because she wanted a good grass court season. And this year she's just got her head down and played, and hats off to her, hats off to the team. But I think her level right now is where she's at because rankings don't lie over a rolling 12-month period. And yeah, hopefully she can go to the States and put more, a better run together and, get some wins at the US Open where she won the title 4 years ago.
I think on a tennis side, Vozian, I actually got asked about this the day of the Sabalenka match. And I think sometimes people talk about Raducanu as someone who needs to use variation and she needs to do, have different things because she does have quite a nice skill set. But like I said to somebody in the women's game against these best players, you can forget the variation unless you're able to hang with the players with quality of ball in the first couple of shots in the rally, from the serve, the return, ball 3, ball 4. And that's what impressed me most against Sabalenka, because I sometimes watch Raducanu and I actually don't think she's the best ball striker. I've watched her quite a bit the last 12 months in live as well. I saw Billie Jean King Cup. Not always the cleanest hitter, not always the cleanest and truest strike. When we're talking about your Sabalenkas, your Anissimovas, how they're hitting the ball. Whereas, yes, it was a grass court. Yes, it was center court under the roof. But she was able for a lot of that match to match Sabalenka with that. And then as the rallies progressed, then she could open the court. Then she could use a bit of slice and she could bring some differences in. But at the top of the women's game, unless you're able to have effect in your first couple of touches and just from absolute quality, you've basically got no chance. And that for me was pleasing to see for Raducanu, and I think that holds her in quite good court. And then the other Brit I have to mention, I don't think anyone was talking about her. She goes under the radar. Freddie, she's the girl who was on the video that we all see of Raducanu playing mini orange tennis. All of his, first she was just the girl that was playing Raducanu, but now she's I think she moved to British number one. I don't know if she stayed at British number one, but that's Sine Cartel, who was the longest standing Brit, made the fourth round. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see much of Sine, but she's someone that also I think has a real opportunity to kind of push on a little bit through the rankings as well. It's nice to see some of these British girls coming through.
Never saw the video you spoke about, but fair play to it. I did see her play a little bit against Pavlyuchenkova. I thought she did herself proud. She had a very good run at Wimbledon and doesn't seem daunted by any occasion. She seemed to be handling that moment very well. I think she has some tennis issues that she needs to work on, but specifically serve first and foremost. I think that especially the second serve is very inviting, and she can't always make up for it by running down balls, especially if she wants to compete consistently against the best girls. But she seems to have great attitude, great mentality, and like you said, the Brits have quite a few girls now to support and cheer, and I'm sure it's good for you guys. I think that there's still a bit of way for her to make some real waves internationally yet, but for sure her ranking is very impressive, and she's a fun one to follow. I do like her spirit and attitude, and I think if she can add a little more quality to her tennis, she could be a really good player.
I'm gonna steal that. Second serve is very inviting. I'm gonna use that on the court with the juniors tomorrow. Stop hitting such inviting second serves, guys.
Be my guest.
I like it. I like it. It's the one before I move into the doubles is that I have to mention, and a shout out to Harry. Harry's our producer, our podcast placement student, and Harry has been at Wimbledon the last 2 weeks, and he might on the podcast, if he's clever enough, he might be able to put this in if you want listening to this as a podcast. Well, Harry was the one that stood up in front of the packed conference room, the press conference, and said, "Hi, I'm Harry from Control the Controllables," and asked Emma Raducanu about the pressure that she was going to deal with over the next few weeks. To which Emma Raducanu responded to say that she wasn't putting expectations on herself. And to which that quote was used everywhere internationally. That was the number one quote that was used. The interviewers on the court were coming in and asking her about that, and that was all down to our Harry's fantastic question. So if he's, like I say, if he's clever enough to insert that clip into the podcast, he'll do it right here. If he's not, he'll probably be clever enough to get rid of that part of the show as well. So for anyone listening on the live stream, I do apologize. But well done, Harry, and hope you had a great couple of weeks. And yeah, doubles delight on the women's side. Just to kind of go through and then please input a little bit, just the last few minutes. I do want to mention it. A shout out to Kudermetova and Mertens. I was highly impressed with them. In the match that they won against Gabby and Erin in the quarterfinals. I thought Gabby and Erin played a fantastic match. It was one of those matches that you want to be part of, and you come away going, God, if we just made a first serve at that moment, or just pick that right spot at that moment, or just finish the volley there, like very, very small little margins. And fair play to them. They went on and won the women's doubles. I did, and we mentioned it the other night, but I'll throw this to you, Vozi Siniakova, who won the mixed doubles with Sam Verbeek. She won the mixed doubles, and I want to have a little discussion on this, but she won the mixed doubles on the evening before the women's doubles semi-final. And honestly, I've never seen Siniakova perform so poorly, especially at a business end of an event. And we can all have bad days. Siniakova is obviously an incredible player, won 10 women's Grand Slams doubles. But again, it's that thing again, when it comes down to a scheduling, you have the kind of high emotions of a final on a Thursday night. Talk us through what the protocol for most players will look like after a match. And let's say the match finishes at 8:30 p.m. What does that next few hours look like for them? And then also, what does, let's say, the final or the semi-finals the next day is at 3 p.m. What does that next day look like? As a general, I know every player is different.
Your post match protocol shouldn't change. Relevant of the time that you finished. You may shorten it a little bit, but you wouldn't cut the processes or the stages of what needs to happen. I mean, I go back to when I worked with Wayne Ferreira. He played Richard Krajicek second round of the Australian Open, won in 5 sets at 2:10 in the morning. We did our jog, our 15-minute, 20-minute jog cool down in the underground car park in Melbourne. By the time he did press and by the time he got back, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. He wanted a full body massage. So I did the full body massage, finished it, just after 5. So 5 in the morning on his day off, and he played doubles that day with David Adams, lost, and then go through the same process again that day for him to play Carl Kuchera the next day and got whacked in 3 sets. I think you would abbreviate that. You'd probably say, well, just work on on parts of the body that were sore. The most important thing, and I think this is really important. The most important thing is sleep. You sleep as much as you can, because that's when your body's resting, recovering, etc., etc. So that's where I would get more emphasis on that, but also just making sure you're getting the right fuel in, and then you start your process. The next day, obviously you can have a little bit more. They can have a little bit more of a lie-in with a 3 o'clock match, and then you start the same process of how you do the warm up. How you etc., etc. So abbreviations of.
I think my point on it, Vossi, and Freddie, let me know what you think on this. It's like, I don't know if you used to get excited about Santa Claus coming at Christmas time, but it wasn't easy to sleep when you knew that Santa Claus was coming the next day. And I think when you win big matches, I remember when I worked with Harry Haliavara, he would say and he was very fixed on this, that he wouldn't fall asleep for at least 4 to 5 hours after the match finished. Like, that was like, he said I can't, and obviously, Harry, bless Harry, I love Harry, but he was quite fixed mindset on those things, so it's I think it's quite hard to come down from the emotion. And, Siniakova, that was her first mixed doubles title. I know there's various views on mixed doubles. There's various kind of validity to whether it's a Grand Slam or it's not a Grand Slam. If you saw all 4 players on that court that day, that was a Grand Slam. That was a Grand Slam. They were fighting for their lives. We had tears. We had high emotion. Sam Verbeek, is his first. He was obviously highly emotional. Siniakova probably playing the more senior role in that pair. Then celebrating. You go up. You have your drinks on the lawn afterwards. There's lots of press to do. It's all very exciting. That's quite hard to come down from that to get to sleep early enough. And Freddie, that happened actually in my girls' favorite WTA finals. Siniakova and Townsend finished at about 11:30 p.m. My girls just scheduling went their way. They played the 1 o'clock match every day. We got it in and out, did our work, had reasonable dinner times, reasonable bedtimes. And I do think that made one of the big differences in the final that year, because Siniakova Townsend just looked a bit tired, a bit ratty, a little bit more lack of tolerance in certain situations. Is that something you've experienced as a coach, as a player?
Yeah, I mean, all these things play in, and that's also why tennis is so difficult, because you can't really prepare for, you have a World Cup in football and all the potential games you're going to play at what time and whenever. Tennis is such a Wild West situation, and you never know what to account for. There can be weather forecasts, there can be all sorts of things that get postponed and these things. And like you said, the adrenaline. And yeah, sometimes I've experienced it, but more from a physical point of view. I actually never had the issue sleeping. I know from, like you said, that a lot of people have the same. I know some of the people, they try to, have a few beers or something to calm their nerves and settle the adrenaline before they could sleep again. That was never an issue for me. But the physical issue of the quick turnaround, and you keep going and many days in a row. And yeah, the year we made the run in Wimbledon, I felt like my legs were heavy at the end, like proper difference in. Not that I never ever felt particularly light as a player. I was never the most nimble and fast around the court, but at the end I felt like, okay, it's done here. Also because you try to focus when you're like Bossy says that you've got to prioritize sleep and these things, and you try to manage your schedule as much as possible, and you don't. Many players don't really take time to work on the physical side or try to stay alert. They focus a lot on recovery, and then after a long stretch, it kind of takes a toll. And then if you're like you said, you had the emotion of having actually won something and have to celebrate this and whatever. There's a lot of things that play in, but it, it might have an effect, it might not. But like you said, when it gets late and the sleep is affected and you wake up tired and you need something extra to get going. That's a huge factor. And you also talk about all these other sports game. If there's been some football tournaments where a finalist where one team had an extra day of recovery, and these things matter hugely. And that's also why you see now the big teams, they travel with so many people, because they I feel like the on court stuff is obviously important, but the most important thing for people that go deep in the slams is managing the time between the on court stuff, and to make sure that you're ready for that. And that's the high process, and that's why you see a Novak, a Yannick, and Carlos traveling with 4 or 5 experts to make sure that every aspect of the game is covered, because it is so vitally important.
And it's time, you mentioned it earlier, Vossi, but it's time to mention Lloyd Glasspool and Julian Cash. If we're lucky in the next couple of minutes, Lloyd's going to jump on, and we're going to get a little bit of time from Lloyd. But what an achievement, Freddie, and what an achievement the last few weeks. What an achievement just to just keep going, really, and just not really blink at the moment. And I don't know if you saw the end, but Lloyd's reaction sums up to me how he's become so clutch on the court, actually, in terms of not allowing the emotion to get too much in the way. He seems just so process driven with that. And what are your words for those boys?
Very, very confident. We were talking about it before the final. The difference in vibe that was going into the final between the two teams, where one team was going in with the confidence vibe of knowing that they've been playing the best tennis on the grass. Vossi mentioned all the wins. They also made finals of Hertogenbosch, so they had the maximum amount of matches that you could have in a grass court season.
Yep.
And we were also talking about, is it gonna, can you actually win too much coming in, or are you just gonna feel unbeatable? And so you had that feeling, and then you had the other feeling of playing with house money and creating a vibe that made the sum of the parts bigger than they actually were. And obviously the confidence one trumped the other one, and they seemed like it was pretty matter of fact that they were just going to win this final because they were better. And that the vibe I had from watching from the outside, I only spoke with Lloyd a little bit during Wimbledon, was also that it didn't seem like anything particular out of the ordinary was going on, that it was just a natural consequence of them doing well. And to what I know from Lloyd is also he's quite pragmatic in the sense, well, if I do this and I do that, I'm going to get this outcome. So happy days. So very happy for him. Good guy. I've known him for a long time. I think you introduced him a long time ago, and I don't have a bad thing to say about him. I don't know Cash that well, but obviously nobody can take away the fact that they were the best team in the world on the grass this year. So very deserved.
Well, one thing I want to ask him about is Julian, 2 little Julian stories around Wimbledon. One, Nikola Mektic's fitness coach said to Julian when he arrived from Eastbourne, great job last week, and obviously great job at Queen's, where they beat Nikola Mektic and Michael Venus. I had to watch at the side of the court. And Julian turned around and he said, yeah, thank you. One more to go. And it could be viewed in lots of ways, right? Almost putting too much pressure on himself. Like, bloody hell, I'll be happy that you've won a couple of big events. But I think that probably summed up where they were as a team. They felt the way that they were serving, the way that they were playing. meant that, quite matter of factly, we're kind of favourites to beat these teams as long as we do our job. The second one is a story that Julian put on you, Freddie, because you have experienced winning Wimbledon back in 2012. And Julian shared a story with his receipt, and his receipt said 153 baby Guinnesses. The dog 153. Oh, that's we'll be asking Lloyd about that shortly, but that's a lot of baby Guinnesses, and it seems like they got a chance to celebrate in style. What was the drink of choice the night that you won Wimbledon?
I think we went to a place called Raffles on Kings Road, I think, and
Ozzy'll know that.
And it was very impromptu. We had a reception with the Danish Federation. I took my friends and family to Raffles. Obviously, we weren't let in. We looked like a bunch of hobos. Nobody had nice clothes on. One of my cousin had shorts on and wasn't allowed in, and then he had to borrow an extra pair of khaki pants or something. Weren't really going out clothes, but they name dropped what had happened, and they were like, "Oh yeah, for sure." Came in and they cleared a corner of the nightclub for us, and I think they just knew that I was there and happy to drop some cash, and I did drop a lot of cash, and I think the drink of choice was all over the place. But the most memorable thing was that my friends went and bought McDonald's for everybody that they allowed into to the nightclub. So we sat and had McDonald's because it was the only place that was open and nobody had eaten anything. So we sat there and we had a great night.
That's the McDonald's is often the food of choice for tennis players, with big celebrations. I've heard it a few times, but don't get it in Saudi Arabia, because we did after WTA finals and it was horrendous. The chicken nuggets were like eating cardboard. It just wasn't. McDonald's is can be good on a night out, and it'll be good to celebrate, but not in Saudi Arabia, not in Riyadh. To finish off, guys, is and I actually just want to again, Vozzy, for me, I've become quite attached to wheelchair tennis the last 2 or 3 years, and I think it's the rivalry actually this is what we talked about this on Friday night, Freddie, right? Just that emotion that brings us in because we feel something. And anyone that's watched Takesha Oda play tennis, it's electric. The guy's unbelievable. And then he's got this big rivalry now with Alfie Ewart. They had the high emotion of the Olympic final. The last year Oda actually lost before got to the Wimbledon final. So Alfie beat De La Puente in the final, but then they also played in the final in Australia where Alfie came out on top. The final in Roland Garros, Oda came out on top, and then they had a 3-set battle where Alfie came close to winning the second set. But these guys are doing something else out there on the court in a wheelchair right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they have put Gordon Reid included in this conversation, wheelchair tennis on the map. I do see both Gordon and Alfie quite a bit, and the work that they put in for their success is blood, sweat, and tears, and they deserve everything that they get, including the endorsements and sponsorships, which are now coming nicely to the table for them. But I agree. I mean, obviously, rivalries are great, and it puts it in the public eye, and hopefully it can blossom, and with in years to come that it becomes bigger and bigger, and hopefully they get more more people involved, maybe get the draw slightly bigger as well.
And you may or may not know this, Freddie, but finally Alfie Ewart and Gordon Reid lost in a final after winning so many consecutive Grand Slams, and they lost to De La Puente from Spain, but they also lost. De La Puente's partner was Spargaran, and what you might not know about Spargaran is his coach is a certain Michael van der Berg, our logo pack German league team, our buddy. who I always
I
like.
actually did know that because I met him last year at Wimbledon. Yeah.
So a big shout out to those guys, and also to Michael van der Berg, who's the coach of that team, who's spent the last few years in wheelchair tennis, but is a fantastic coach, someone that me and Freddie have known for a long time. And then on the women's side, the Chinese are taking over as Wang won in the final. She was number 4 seed. She took the top team in the final of the singles, and then Wang and Lee won the doubles as well. So it feels like more and more, certainly Wimbledon have bought into it, putting those matches on big stages. And there we have it. 2025 Wimbledon has come to an end, guys. The one lasting memory of Wimbledon 2025, Vozzy. You don't have to be mainstream.
The weather.
Yes.
The weather was incredible. Yeah, I mean, obviously the fan engagements, again, what they're forever improving year in, year out on the event. I'm excited to see the new Millennium Building almost complete next year. Yeah, I'll probably go down the road of, and what Freddie says, the standard of tennis, for seeds to lose in the first round. It just goes to show that, it can be a lottery from seed 10 onwards, and you just hope for a good draw. Yeah, and I'll just highlight, I really enjoyed Jarry's run. I thought, to play qualies and make the fourth round, I thought that was a great effort, considering, he had that sickness. That for me was a standout on the men's side. I'd probably say Shelton's run as well. I enjoyed his run. I enjoyed the way he engaged in the crowd. Got his sister a week off work from JP Morgan. He was he definitely had the
his box office.
Yeah, his box office, and you can see he's been to college. Yeah, but I thought all of that was great. So that kind of my standout. And on the women's side was I was pleased for Cartel's run to the round of 16. I think she did super well, and she grew as a player each round. And I don't think she looked too uncomfortable in the 16s. And again, hopefully they can step up and move on, in the tournaments coming up in the summer.
Awesome. And Freddie?
Oh, there's only one standout for me. I was there as a coach, and I had 2 players in the main draw. That was an outstanding achievement by the players, and for me personally, a pretty big moment as a coach, and obviously one of them making a run to the third round through qualies was one of the most extraordinary things I've ever been part of as a coach. So that's by far the standout moment for me.
And a big shout out and well done to you, Freddie, for that. That was actually one of mine. I watched the end of August's second round match, and I'm going to kind of put that into just a couple of matches, or a few matches. I felt this Wimbledon, we had a lot of raw emotion. It felt like players were winning matches and just letting themselves go. People in the crowd were letting themselves go. When I picture August giving his dad a hug, like it was that was a proper moment, like you could feel the emotion coming through the screen. I then go to Caboli when Caboli won his big match. You had his dad and brother that are just in absolute hysterics at the side of the court. Some beautiful moments. Then you go to the mixed doubles final, and that's a big shout out I'd like to give to Louisa Stefani, who Louisa's best friends with Gabby, so I get to spend quite a bit of time with Louisa. I know the challenges she's had. She's a delightful girl. She's had a lot of physical and mental challenges over the last 3 or 4 years. To see her playing on the big stage where she belongs again, and seeing her emotion in her speech after the mixed doubles, and then Sem Verbeek, who then got the whole crowd to sing happy birthday to his dad. It feels like it was a real event where there was just a lot of raw emotion, a lot of tears. And then my last one is the strawberries, man. There's just getting less and less each year in that strawberry box. You know,
And it's a bit like Forrest Gump's chocolates, right? It's very mixed quality these days.
yeah. You know, I must admit I got some good quality ones, but I'm not sure 6 or 7.
So did I, but I also got some that weren't.
Yeah, you got to look, Freddie, first. Open, look. How red are they?
Yeah, I don't want to be that person. You can't be that person.
I'm joking. I don't. I would never do that. Although I did see one player pick up one box of strawberries, open their box of strawberries, and then pour more in. They were not impressed with the 7 strawberries they had, so that quickly became 15 or 16.
Not stupid though.
not stupid. For £2.75. And guys, you as are a delight. A big thank you to you for everything
Thank
you do
you.
for the podcast, and everybody loves having you guys on. So thank you, and until the next one.
Thanks, Dan. Ciao.
Look forward to it. Take care. All the best.
Thank you. Until the next time, guys, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllable.
Take it easy, boys.
See you later.